our training agenda, we're going to go through Hub basics, Hub reporting considerations, how to submit reports in EVP, how to find or verify Hub vendors. So a little bit of overview of the Hub office. The Office for Historically Underutilized Businesses promotes economic opportunities for historically underutilized businesses in state government contracting and procurement, and the goal is to foster their growth and profitability. The main roles of the Hub office include Hub certification, North Carolina Small Business Enterprise certification, advocacy and business development services, compliance and reporting, and Leslie, this is the bullet that we need to take off, the Minority Business Development Agency Business Center. That was a grant that we had. It was a 5-year grant. We were in the 4th year of the grant, but the grant was rescinded, I suppose, would be the end, or canceled by the administration on the federal level. So we no longer have that bullet. So we really have those 4. So what is a certified Hub vendor? We talk about hubs a lot, and sometimes maybe people don't exactly know what it means. So there is a general statute 143-128.4 that goes through the definition of a hub vendor. And where I've got listed certification criteria is basically the definition. It's 51% ownership and daily management and control by individuals in the Hub certification categories, which we'll run through in a moment. And that statute also specifies that in order to count towards Hub spending and Hub participation, firms have to be Hub certified. And that certification takes place through the Hub office. So our certification categories, in the minority category, it's not really considered a certification category, but it's kind of broken out that way. So we've got, and we use the terms that are in the statute. So even if there might be some more modern terms, we use the statutory terms. So the categories are Black, Hispanic, Asian American, American Indian, female, disabled, disadvantaged, and employee stock ownership plan, which we call ESOP for short. There's actually nobody yet certified as an ESOP. That's a slightly different, newer category, and it is based on the number of employees that own stock in the company. If there's IRS forms involved, and it doesn't have a control component. It's just about the ownership for that one. But in our certification categories, when you are looking for Hub vendors later on, you'll see that they will only have one certification category. So it'll be either Black, Hispanic, Asian American, American Indian. If they fall into one of those categories, that's the category they have. And then we stop. We don't also look to see, is the ownership female, disabled, or disadvantaged. There's just one certification category that each company gets. So we look first at the minority categories, and if they don't fall into that, then we look at female, and if they're female, then that's their category. So that is essentially Caucasian female as that category. And if they're not any of the minority categories or female, disabled is the next category down, and disadvantaged. There's not really a priority over one or the other. It's just usually if somebody is disabled, like a service disabled veteran, it's usually a little bit easier to establish that disability than it would be to establish the disadvantage. So we just have fewer disadvantaged than we do other categories. There are some self-identified categories. These are for goods and services only. We don't use those on the construction side. And we capture spending with this, but these don't go into the Hub dollars and Hub percentage. That's disabled business enterprise. That's state defined. That's not the federal definition. That's used for DOT. Totally different meanings there. And then the nonprofit work center for the Blind and Severely Disabled. MPWC is usually the category or the acronym we use for that. Again, those are not certification categories, but we do capture the spending for those. Okay. And please, as we're going through, if anybody has any questions or comments, please feel free to put anything in the chat that you have questions about, or raise your hand, and we'll try to call on you and take you off mute and ask your question. So giving you a sense of how many vendors we have for Hub certified firms, we've got about 6,661 as of October 7th. And this is a sort of a heat map of where the Hub vendors are located throughout the state. And the darker the green color, the more Hub vendors we've got. So we've got over 500 vendors in Mecklenburg and Wake County and Guilford County. And I want to say Mecklenburg is typically the highest number. I think they may have more than 1,000 vendors in that area. It's probably not surprising to see that the more vendors are in urban areas. We are doing outreach to different areas to try to increase those numbers of Hub vendors available for use in our more rural areas, particularly in the West and in the East. So when we do our outreach, we try to make sure that we're hitting in rural communities or near rural communities where folks from other counties could come in and learn about certification so that we can increase those certified firms. We've heard certainly enough times, particularly up in the Perquimans, Pasquotank area, where people are like, yeah, we would love for vendors to come and bid on our projects. We would love anybody to come bid our projects. On the construction side, they often have to go up to Virginia Beach and Norfolk in that area and pull people down. And what we're trying to do is, help vendors who are more local recognize there's a market for you, there's a desire for you to be working locally, and agencies would like to do that. So they want to include you in those opportunities. The whole program is about opportunity. It's all about bidding, being the lowest responsive bidder, being able to do the work. The Hub portion is really just about notifying them and making sure that they're aware that these opportunities are out there for them to take a look at and bid on. So a little bit of legislative background. There's a goal of 10% for goods and services spending established in Executive Order 25. North Carolina General Statute 14348 states that the state policy is to encourage the use of small and historically underutilized businesses. It doesn't exactly use that historically underutilized businesses terminology, but it is effectively what it's talking about. It just says it in more words. It also covers reporting requirements, and North Carolina General Statute 143-128.4 is that statewide uniform certification. And that is the one that defines Hub, the historically underutilized business. It also says the Department of Administration certifies Hubs and maintains a database of those vendors, and the Hub office is the part of the Department of Administration that actually does that. And it also says that only certified Hubs count toward minority business participation. So statewide uniform certification came about because at one point in time, vendors could go to City of Raleigh and get certified, and also City of Charlotte and Greenville and Winston-Salem. They might have all had separate certification programs, and they would have to go to each one of them and get certified separately to get counted. And this uniform certification statewide brought it together, put it under the Department of Administration to manage that. And if somebody is certified by the Hub office, they are considered certified everywhere in the state. And so they don't have to go and do multiple certifications just because they're a little bit of distance away from where they first got certified. So some basics. State policy encourages the use of historically underutilized businesses in purchase of goods and services, and that reporting covers purchases from term contracts, open market contracts for the current fiscal year. So that includes purchases of goods, purchases of services. Purchases from non-governmental entities count toward purchases. So if you're contracting with a community college, university, or correction enterprises, those dollars don't count towards those total purchases. It's just things that you put out for bid and private companies or nonprofits bid on them. Only firms certified by the Hub office count towards Hub participation. You've heard that 2 or 3 times now, and we say that to try to reinforce that. Reports are submitted on a quarterly basis, and we'll go through how we do that. So there are 2 types of reporting. There are purchases of goods and services, which we're covering in this webinar, and there's also construction spending, which is not covered in this webinar. For local governments, we have a totally separate training on that. It's a different system, and they have different due dates and everything. So when we're looking at our spending, this is looking back a couple of years, fiscal year 23-24, we spent over $12 billion, almost $13 billion as a state. And we spent $812 million with Hub vendors. Our percentage with Hubs was 6.26%. Last year, we spent a little less. We spent $11.6 billion as a state, and spending with Hubs was at $710 million. So that was 6.12%. So you'll notice our goal is 10%. We've achieved 6%. And this is continuing as we go through the year. We look at the percentage, and it's not just, okay, they made 10% in this quarter, they're good, they don't have to worry about it. It's for the whole year. So we're looking at spending for the whole year when we determine the overall percentage. And again, only certified Hubs count towards Hub dollars and Hub percentages. Looking at our reporting dates, the due dates can always be found on the Hub office website for Hub purchasing of goods and services expenditure reporting. That's a devoted page to goods and services reporting. We use a quarterly year then the fiscal year starts July 1 and ends June 30th. So quarter 1 covers July 1 through September 30th. And so that quarter is over right now. And the next report that we're going to submit is for that quarter, and that's due October 30th. And we'll go a little bit more into that, but we do send reminders about the reporting dates each quarter by email to the people that we have listed as contacts. So keeping up our contacts list, helping us keep it up to date, will help the right people get the reminders about the reporting. So who reports? We've got 13 cabinet agencies, 9 council of state agencies, 9 support agencies, 19 public universities or university institutions, 58 community colleges, 115 school systems, and 5 nonprofits that report to us. So what's reported? Term contract spending is reported. That's state term contracts, open market purchases, non-governmental entities, and actual payments is what it's reported on. Purchases might be by PO payments, direct payments, writing a check, or just transferring something electronically, or P-card payments. And the state term contracts can be found on the North Carolina P&C website. Some of those are mandatory. Some of those are optional or convenience-related contracts. And some of the required agencies might not be every agency that's on this call. It may be that all the state agencies have to use it, but the others can use it. Definitely, it's a good thing to use from a purchasing perspective and making sure you're getting a good price. Doesn't mean if somebody has a better price, you can't use them, but you have to have some backing up of the price difference and that you're getting the same thing that would be on state term contract in order to do that. And there are some hub vendors on state term contract. There's not as many as we might like, but there are certain firms on state term contract, such as the durable medical equipment. There's also a office supplies. There's some furniture um, firms that are on state term contract as well. Air filters are on state term contract with a hub vendor as well. So some examples of things that are goods and services spending. So if they're on state term contract, when we report it, we just list it under state term contract. We do not also break it out and say, well, that was a good and that was a service. It was just on state term contract. So we're going to put it both in term contract and in goods and services. No, if it's a state term contract, it just goes in state term contract. If it is not on state term contract, it goes into either commodities or services. And sometimes there's a little bit of overlap. But if the majority of what you're paying for is commodities, tangible goods, or services, you put them in that right place. If you are having somebody who does a research study for you and they hand you a physical copy of the report, which is less and less likely these days, it's more likely to be electronically provided. But if they provided that to you, yes, you're getting that physically, but the majority of what you paid for was the research and putting the analysis of the data and putting that report together. So if you've got a little bit of both in there, you kind of have to weigh how much of this was commodities versus services and put it in the right spot. And if anybody needs some examples of that, they were a little bit on the screen there. And everybody should have access to the slides for today. If you do not, please put your email address in the chat and we'll make sure that we get them to you. We save them as a PDF and send them out for everybody to have access to. So what spending is not included? If you have this spending, don't count it in your totals. If you have spending with governmental entities as vendors, so if you're paying a municipality for water or sewer, if you're doing work with a state university or community college, if you're spending some money with the county, if you're sending money to the sheriff's department or local jail, if you're buying things from Correction Enterprises, they're part of the Department of Adult Correction. Or if you have a vendor that's mandated by the General Assembly or some other internal rule, you don't count those dollars in the total spend. Also, salaries, wages, benefits, personal services payments, those do not get counted. Aid and public assistance doesn't get counted. Reserves and intergovernmental transactions don't get counted, primarily because these things would not be put out for public bid that private companies would be able to bid on. So we just take those out so they're not held against you and artificially lower your hub percentage. So there are some exclusions that we have in addition to that, just things that we don't count because they're those other categories. If it's a workshop or conference, or, registration fees, we don't count that. Some hospital provided services, don't count those. Rent or lease agreements would not be counted, but if you contracted with a real estate agent to find a location to rent or lease, then you could count the spending with that real estate agent. Electrical services, water and sewer, internet service providers, cable TV, we don't count those. They just don't count them. If there's inmate tuition, prescription drugs, legal settlements, court costs, pension fund payments, debt service payments, don't include those in your total. And when you're tracking, we do encourage the tracking of spending for goods and services. That's actually in Executive Order 25 that we encourage that to happen. Tracking it needs to be done. Sometimes we call that second tier or multi-tier. It basically means somebody had the contract and they're using somebody else to do part of that contract. So we're trying to see if there are hub vendors that are being used as subcontractors. So you can count them. They don't add to your total. They just add on to your hub dollars, and we'll explain that with an example in a moment. But you must be able to document, track, and report the subcontractors in the same way as the prime vendors. So you need to know the date of the purchase, whether it was a commodity or service, and you need to verify that the subcontractors were certified at the time of payment. So we have to look at, when are we deciding whether somebody is certified or not? And what we've landed on is if they are certified at the time of the payment, then you can count those dollars as hub. You also would need to identify their hub category for the subcontractors, so Black, Hispanic, Asian American, et cetera. So you'll need to keep track of that if you're doing that subcontract spend. We do think that there is subcontract spend out there with hub vendors, and we're just trying to have a full accounting of all the spend that we do with hubs. The hub office emails a quarterly report of CAI IT staffing, subcontractor spending to state agencies and any community colleges that use that contract. We don't send it out to everybody because it could be confusing for folks that they're like, well, why am I getting this? I'm not on this list. So we just want people to, if they have an expectation that they might be on the list, then we would try to share that information with them. But we're not going to send it to all 115 school systems if no school systems are using it. So this is an IT short-term staffing spending contract, and it's with Computer Aid Incorporated. CAI is the company that manages the overall contract, and there are, I believe, hundreds of firms on the staffing contract. So a lot of those are hubs, not the majority of them, but there are a fair number of them. And the hub office emails the data that we are provided by CAI out to the folks who actually use the contract. And we get that around the 10th of the month. It's not always exactly the 10th of the month. So we won't have answers to CAI spending questions until probably middle of the month after the quarter ends. If you have more than $0 in hub spending here, you would add these dollars to your appropriate hub categories on your EVP Hub Goods and Services report in the services category. So in this example that we're looking at here, Health and Human Services had spending in 3 different categories with hub vendors. So this would not be the total amount of spending for those categories. If they haven't had any additional spending already in those categories, they would add these values to it. So if they had $150,000 in the Black category, they would add $150,000 plus the $74,000. And then the same for the Asian American category with the $282,000 and the women-owned category with the $1.7 million. So they would add these dollars to their hub spend. They would not add it to their total because we already have CAI spending captured. So we don't want to double count these values by adding it to the total. Okay, if anybody has any questions about that, please feel free to reach out. And it does look like we had a couple of emails put in the chat, so that we'll make sure that we get these slides to you. Okay, so reporting on hub spend. There are several data sources, and they depend on the particular type of organization. And we have some slides from these. We don't have access to all these systems, so we can't go in and do a sample or a demonstration of what it looks like. If somebody was willing to volunteer to do that, we could certainly do that and take some time in here to go through it. Or we could see about maybe saying if we've got all the community colleges and they're like, we want to see this from the community college perspective, we might set up a separate meeting for just the community colleges to go through that. We've done that with the state agencies before. So just going through the sources, community colleges use eProcurement and Colleague. Um, School systems use Link or SunPack, and there are some exceptions, and there are some DPI financial system upgrades that have happened. There were some uh, uh, sample ones, or they were trying things out. They hadn't totally rolled everything out. So these were pilot programs that have uh, upgraded their systems, and they don't use Link or SunPack. The challenge with that is making sure, as the systems are being developed, that they can actually provide reports from those systems related to Hub. And we did find a couple of times that had not happened. So it took people time to go back and figure out, how do I pull this information out of my system? So if you know that there is a new system coming online, please ask about Hub spending in that to make sure that you have the ability to pull what you need to pull. Public universities, there are several systems out there that are that vary. There's Argos, Banner, PeopleSoft, WebFocus. So there's not like one particular slide that we can show that says, here's how you do this, public universities. And the nonprofit, those systems vary. And one thing that we can say is P-card and state term contract don't apply to nonprofits. They have maybe it's a simpler way that they have to report things. They just report on goods and they just report on services. Um, the state agencies, depends what state agency you are, but DOT and North Carolina Ports Authority use SAP as their reporting system for Hub. And then the North Carolina Education Lottery uses Microsoft Dynamics. And all the other state agencies use the Hub spending report system. Um, there are P card purchases for any entity that's able to use P cards. The data that you would get would come from the Bank of America Works system. And that is a challenge. It is something that, yes, there's spending going on there. We want to try to capture it. It's pretty labor intensive to pull the information out and compare it to see, are vendors actually Hub certified, because that system is not linked up with the Hub database. So it cannot, bounce things off of an ID or a tax ID to say, is this the firm? And when vendors register in Works to be part of the P card program, they can self-identify um, their minority categories or their woman-owned status, and that may or may not match up with the Hub certification status. What I usually recommend, and I'm not an expert in this, is that if you can pull a report from Works based on the minority categories or woman-owned categories that are in there, that might be an easier way that for you to match against the Hub database. You'll have fewer vendors to try to match up and say, is this really the same company? Because almost in every system people register for, they don't use the exact same wording for their company name. They may leave a period off, or they may leave an LLC off, or incorporate, or they may shorten it in one system versus another. So that just causes a little bit of complication there. And it takes a little bit of work to work around that. So looking at community colleges with their use of Colleague, um, the Hub status and category in Colleague is updated automatically. So that's not something that you'll have to go hunting for when you're pulling your goods and services spending. The commodity codes do really matter in the XHUR report. It really depends on them to put purchases in the right categories. Tracking P card spending is not supported in Colleague, and that data would come from the Works system. And this is what the XHUR report looks like. And there is a detailed list of vouchers by Hub category that can be viewed as well. So it puts it in a certain order here. and it does say Black, Hispanic, Asian American, American Indian, woman-owned, disabled-owned. But I want to make sure that you're careful with this because then it says disabled-owned business enterprise. So that's the DBE that we were talking about. Then it goes to nonprofit work centers for the blind and severely disabled, which is also, both of those are nonprofits. And the socially and economically disadvantaged falls under that. And that is a different order than shows up in EVP. So please be careful if you're entering that in. If it's all zeros, it's not going to matter. But if you have socially and economically disadvantaged in there, you'll need to be careful to make sure that you're putting it in the right place. Then we've got the hub file download in EVP. That hub file download contains the EVP company number and coded indicators showing each vendor's certification category. So it doesn't list anybody's company name, where they're located, who to contact, any emails or contact information. It really just says, here's the EVP company number, and here's their category based on this code. It was originally developed to upload into Link and Sunpack when it used tax IDs. It does not use tax IDs anymore. And the intent of that was to help the school systems be able to keep better track of their hub status in those systems. Link and Sunpack users should consult with their developers to see if the file can still be uploaded based on the EVP company number versus the tax ID. So yes, that's a change that we did not really want, but we were required to make it. And I know that it has caused challenges for school systems. So looking at EVP customer company numbers, there's not a publicly available list of all the EVP company numbers. We have requested if there could be an IT crosswalk for that. Individual EVP company numbers can be found in the company's EVP profile. So if you're going into a hub vendor, this one is the Etiquette Doctor LLC, and you go into that profile, there is a hub section down at the bottom, and it will actually tell you the EVP number, because the hub certification number will say hub dash the EVP company number. So that is one way that you can see that on an individual firm basis if you needed or wanted to do that. And if you need assistance being able to identify vendor entities on a case-by-case basis, we might be able to assist with that. Link Hub reports. So anybody using Link, this is one set of screenshots that we've received to say how you can do it. There might be different ways of doing it in Link. And somebody just asked a question, are there any slides that you are aware of to show how to pull information from Link? Yes, and this is them. So you use the report builder under the reports tab in fund management to select the desired columns for the report. And the budget analysis works the same way, but it has a lot of columns in there, and the report, you may not want it to use that for hub reporting. You can create a report for hub services and a separate report for hub supplies. So that would be able to give you goods versus services. It does not necessarily tell you what is going to be a state term contract spend. As I understand it, the Link information, I don't know that it has the ability to mark a payment as this was a term contract in there. That might be a question to ask your Link representative. And then there's also, you can also create that for supplies. I think the previous version was for services. And you'll see the hub supply report, and it'll tell you the total dollars and should give you a breakout of what that spend what that spend involved. So looking again, you can run a purchases category report under reports in FM, enter quarter dates, select all for purchase category and active for hub status. And you can use this information to create your hub report for EVP. Again, we got these slides from somebody who uses Link, and there may be more than one way to get the information that you have. One of the challenges that I had previously with a report from Link is that it just gave all the spending, whether it was something that would be excluded or not, and it included all the salaries and benefits and the things. But I think these reports that we're looking at are a little bit more specific. So it's services, it's supplies, and it would not be counting the benefits and salaries there. So, and moving on with Sunpack, the hub report instruction document is available. It's back from, I want to say 2015. So it may not be the most up to date. We do have a copy of it that we can share with you. We did not have a set of instructions from Link, or we would offer that as well. We do recommend if you're using Sunpack that you report based on invoices rather than purchases, because we're trying to figure out actual spend, not, we have 3 years worth of spend, ready to go. We're not looking for that. We're looking for actual spend and when it happened, money out the door. Nonprofits reports are submitted under the support agency category, and they only report on the General Assembly appropriation amount. So not their overall budget, but just how much money the General Assembly had appropriated to them. They report on commodities and services, but not on state term contracts. And reports are submitted by emailed spreadsheet that hub staff enter into EVP. So we were trying to get the ability for the nonprofits to log into EVP and submit their reports directly. And that's been a little bit more challenging, time consuming, expensive than originally expected. So we've been able to do that using email with the nonprofits. So we're going to continue with that for the time being. So hub spending report system, this is used by about 28 state agencies. And it's designed so the data is typically available 10 days after the month or the quarter ends. It captures actual spend from the North Carolina financial system. It captures direct payments as well as e-procurement purchase orders. So it can distinguish between something that had a purchase order in e-procurement versus something that was a direct pay check or transfer of funds. If we have it through e-procurement purchase orders, we have more information about what the purchase involved and commodity codes and things that help describe that purchase. Summaries are available by quarter and month, and it covers PO spend and direct payments. So you actually can have a report that says, this is how much spend we did with POs, and this is how much was direct payments, and those things are side by side. That's not necessarily something you have to worry about when submitting your quarterly report, but it's there as useful information to say, okay, do we do really well with hub in one category versus another? Maybe why is that? Do we need to think about why one category does well and use some of those processes over on the other side? Maybe that will work for you, maybe it won't, but the report will help you see that. And then reports are available to track spending with the North Carolina Small Business Enterprise firms. We had mentioned earlier on that the Hub Office certifies firms as North Carolina Small Business Enterprises. The criteria is different. It's a race gender neutral program, so it does not look at the characteristics of an owner. It just looks at the size of the company in terms of employees, 100 employees or less, $1.5 million annual revenue or less. and they have to be headquartered in North Carolina and be a for-profit business, and they can get certified. So there's not a current requirement on spending goals with NCSBEs. There are many of the hub vendors are NCSBEs. A good portion of the NCSBEs are hub vendors. The SRS system pulls that out because we get that information from the electronic vendor portal system, from e-procurement, and so we can already know how much spend we're having with NCSBEs. It's not anything that those agencies have to go through and figure out. For anybody else, it would be a much more manual process to figure out how much spending they're doing with NCSBEs. So these are the agencies that use the hub spending report system. Cabinet agencies, we've got administration, adult correction, commerce, environmental quality, health and human services, information technology, military and veterans affairs, natural and cultural resources, public safety, revenue, State Bureau of Investigation, and State Highway Patrol. And State Highway Patrol is a new cabinet agency this year. They were split off just recently. And State Bureau of Investigation is relatively new as well. And if anybody is on this list and they say, I'm responsible for this report, but I don't know how to get into this thing, reach out to Leslie and myself, and we can make sure that you have access to it and that you have the information to know how to log in, how to maneuver through the system. There's some training materials that we have that you can go at your own pace to figure out what the different screens look like. And we have done some sessions on that. There actually might be one recorded in our YouTube channel, so that if you are a Hub SRS user, that might be something that's available. And if you want to look for it, go ahead and feel free to do that. If you have trouble finding it, you can reach out to Leslie and me, and we'll see about getting you the link for that.
And John, we have a few questions in the chat. I'm
Okay,
not sure if this is a great place to stop right now.
let's do it.
Okay. I think we answered Shanta's questions about the slides regarding Link.
Okay.
And we have, is North Carolina Certified Business Enterprise replacing Hub, or are they running parallel?
Vendors can be certified as either Hub or NCSBE or both. If they meet the criteria, they can be certified in any of those three ways. They could be Hub certified only, NCSBE certified only, or certified as both. We've encountered other organizations in the past where small business has been something that they've looked at, and it was actually a recommendation of our disparity study to have a small business program, and we've got the certification portion of it. And there's not, like we said before, there's not requirements on reporting that, but our secretary, who used to be with the Small Business Administration, definitely has an interest in the NCSBE numbers to know how much spending is going on with that. So we do pay attention to that, but it's not something that anybody's held accountable to a certain goal of dollar amount or percentage spending with NCSBEs. I have encountered some local governments that were more interested in the NCSBE side than the Hub side, because they were like, we want to work with small businesses, and if they're local to us, we really want to do that. So they had that particular interest. Okay, did that answer that question?
And so, yes, and we have another question from Elizabeth, which she thanks Taryn for asking her question. Should agencies track both NCSBE and certification, NCSBE and Hub certified?
If you are one of these agencies on the screen, it's captured for you in the Hub spending report system. So if you belong to one of these agencies, you can already see it. You don't have to make a special effort to try to track it. And we can walk you through the screens if you need to see where you would find that in the system. If you are not a Hub SRS user, there is not an automated way of tracking that in the other systems. So right now, the only agencies that we would ever share spending about with NCSBEs would be the ones that are on this screen. And Elizabeth, I'm just not sure if your agency is one of these, um, or if you would have an interest from a local perspective. You might have an interest in a local perspective. What you would probably need to do if you're not one of these agencies is know who you spent money with and be able to match it against the NCSBE database, which is found in the same place as the Hub one, which I think we'll get to later on.
Alrighty. And the next question is, are NCSBEs new? Was not aware of it before today's meeting.
They're not really new. During the COVID pandemic, there was Executive Order 143, and that one, some people may remember, there was a requirement during that from that executive order that if spending was $250,000 or less, they had to get a bid from a hub vendor, and it said a certified small hub vendor, or request an exemption showing, hey, we looked for vendors and we couldn't find them, so we didn't have any bids from these vendors. But that NCSBE criteria of the spend, or not the spend, but the annual revenue and the number of employees comes from that executive order. So it's been around since I want to say 2021 or 2022 when they actually started getting certified. So there's a little over 2,000 of them currently certified.
Awesome. Is there a way for the download file to include text IDs? I'm sorry, I'm laughing.
Mhm.
And the EVP numbers so that the download will work in Link. That's from
Ah,
Amber. Mhm.
yeah, Amber, I would love to tell you yes, and our legal people have told me no. So unfortunately, right now, there is not a specific way to do that. Um, and I hate it because it was so useful to have the tax IDs uploaded and make sure that you don't have somebody from 15 years ago that said they were hub certified at the time and they haven't been in business for, or you maybe you've been using them, but they sold themselves and they're owned by somebody who's not eligible anymore. So it's really frustrating to me, and I know it's really hard on the school systems to keep up with that update. We haven't totally given up on it. It's just the the folks who do the work on this have so many high priority things to do that it makes it hard to get this particular issue looked at and addressed. Um, we're not necessarily going to give up on it. They're just That's just the where it stands right now.
And the next question is from Ms. Jackie Farmer. Do you have a copy of the EVP screen with the tabs on the left where you enter the hub information?
Well, we do have some screenshots coming up where we go through that. So hopefully when we get there, Jackie, take a look at that and see if that answers your question and makes you feel comfortable with that. If not, we can probably look at how we might help you get what you need.
Thank you.
And our last question for this particular pause is from Allison. Where or how do we submit EVP numbers we gather for the vendors?
Um, the Well, that's a great question, and I'm assuming, Allison, that you're asking from the perspective of a school system. I could be wrong, but uh, if that's the case, if you use Link or you use um, Sunpack, you would need to actually reach out to them and say, look, with the tax ID thing isn't working anymore. Is there a way that we have in here to put our EVP number in there? And it may be that uh, Link may be a little bit ahead on this. I'm not totally sure. I haven't been in contact with them for a while. Um, but I would ask them, is there a place we can put those EVP numbers in so that we can match against this upload that we have available? Are those all the questions that we've got?
That is it.
Okay, all right. So let's move forward. Um, there is a public and vendor facing portal that's called the North Carolina Electronic Vendor Portal. I think most people here are probably familiar with it. If you're not, that's fine. But this is where hub vendors go to register to be vendors with the state and to say, I want to be hub certified, I want to be NCSBE certified. They go to that sign in or register uh, button on the screenshot that we're looking at. If they are looking for solicitations, bids, requests for qualifications, whatever, they would go to browse solicitations. There is a lot of ways to filter different things or search for different opportunities there. It doesn't necessarily capture every single opportunity out there. Not everybody posts their solicitations in EVP, and the hub office does have a way for folks to post if they're not using EVP. But vendors can go look for solicitations there. You can go to browse vendors and look for hub vendors or NCSBE vendors there. And like we said, we're talking about NCSBEs, but it's more, we're required to look for hub vendors and report on hub spend. So you may want to look to see if somebody's a small business, and this could be a way to do it, but our focus mostly is on hub in here. So we also use EVP to manage our certifications for both Hub and NCSBE. That's on the back end of EVP. And we use our goods and services Hub Stats app in EVP to report on goods and services. Now, if you're a nonprofit, then it's through the email and it's not through EVP. We still put the data into EVP for you, but as a nonprofit, you would just be working on the spreadsheet, which is set up to mirror what it looks like in EVP. So what's needed to access EVP Hub Stats? Leslie, you're more familiar with this. I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you want to cover this slide?
So yeah, so we have had a lot of new people to join us when it comes to accessing EVP. These are the steps that you should take. You have to have a valid NCID. That's number one. And that's only one email address associated with that NCID. So if you have replaced someone in your division and they've given you access to their NCID, that's a no-no. So we would love for you to get on the right page so that everyone is in compliance when it comes to accessing this information. You're also going to make sure you set up the correct user type, and you must be active in NCID. And so the best way to do that is to, if you do not know who your administrator is, your NCID administrator, there is a link. If you receive the slide deck, you can just click the link and it will take you directly to the page to find out who your NCID administrator is. And once that is done, then they can walk you through the steps and get you the right information so you can have access to EVP.
All right. And I would just want to acknowledge in the chat, this is not EVP specific, but it was link specific. Somebody was asking where in link EVP numbers can be entered. And Amber answered that question for us. So kind of saying this on the record for Leslie and me to see if we can include that in our next set of slides when it comes to Link so that folks who are using Link can have that as a reference. All right. So moving on. So what is needed to access EVP Hub Stats? Leslie, do you want to take this one as well? I'll take that as a no. She might be talking to somebody. So if you need access to EVP Hub stats, your organization would already need to be set up. And I think all of the entities that would be reporting on goods and services would have this set up if they're able to. So nonprofits wouldn't necessarily fall into this right now, but all the other school systems, community colleges, universities, agencies would have an account already set up for their organization. But this is for the individual to be able to go into EVP and to report on their hub statistics. So when you're using the EVP user maintenance form, there's a link right here. You would go in under access, user access level. You need to make sure that you select hub statistics user. If you're a state agency that uses hub SRS, that's probably all you'll need. If you are a school system, you may also want to select the hub file download. So once you, and it says it contains the federal tax ID. This is not our form. They have not updated this form. It does not use the federal tax ID. It uses the electronic vendor portal customer number or company number. So you can select those. Once you submit this form, it goes to the Division of Purchase and Contract that manages EVP. And since you may be selecting other things on here that are state procurement users or things related to that, they manage those access points, and they will inform us when a request comes in for Hub Statistics user access or Hub file download access. So Leslie and I will get those notices, and we will say, should this person have this access? You know, if there's somebody who's on our contact list for goods and services, yes, we want to make sure that they have them. If it's somebody from a county government or a municipality, they can't even report on goods and services spending, so it would not make sense for them to have that access. Accessing EVP to submit the hub reports. This link is different than if you were just going to browse for hub vendors. So this is a specific link that will get you to log in to get access to the back end of EVP, and that's where the Hub Statistics app is located. So you would, when you're click on that link, at least the first time, it may remember you after this. You would need to enter the email address associated with your user's NCID, not the NCID itself, but the email address associated with it. And then you would enter your NCID password. And if your NCID password auto populates, click sign in. If instructed, you may have to do like multi-factor authentication, and you do that if you need to. The EVP dashboard for your organization will appear on the screen. If you do have trouble logging in, contact your NCID administrator, and we ask you to do this in this order. So contact your NCID administrator, make sure your account is not locked. That could be a very simple fix. Unlock it, then you can sign in, and that your user type is set as a state employee or local employee, you know, as appropriate. If you're a school system, local employee. If you're a state agency, state employee. If that is confirmed, then and you're still unable to log in, then reach out by email to, this is Purchase and Contracts System Support email address, and I won't try to read it out to you. I'll just encourage you to either just click on that link or copy that and put it in your email to send it to them and say, I'm having trouble. Might help to include some screenshots of what you're seeing to help them diagnose the problem. Doesn't hurt to include, or the screenshot to include the URL that you're on. Sometimes that can help diagnose where things are and where things might be going wrong. So email them to ensure your Hub Statistics user app in EVP has been granted. Maybe you submitted your form this morning and you contact them, you try to log in and it doesn't work on the same day. Well, it's probably not going to have granted you access. You know, you you submit the form at 9 a.m. and you go in at 11 a.m. and try to log in, it's not going to work because people haven't had a chance to actually go in and get your request and process it. And we wouldn't have had a chance to say, yes, go ahead and give them access. And if you go through that with them and you still have problems getting in, call the NCDIT help desk at 919-754-6000. And if you have the ability to provide screenshots of any error messages received, that would probably be a good thing to have on hand. So if you have trouble getting into EVP, those are the steps to follow. Here are training resources for using EVP. Some of them, there are specific ones on here for goods and services reporting for Hub, and that includes accessing, reviewing, and approving the Hub statistics record. And there are also additional trainings available about posting solicitations, viewing bids, entering bid tabulations and awards, posting contract extensions, Hub goods and services reporting, and searching for registered vendors. So if you're looking for Hub vendors, that last one is not a bad one to be familiar with. There are some basics for EVP data entry, and that's that all dollar values need to be whole numbers only. Round it up to the nearest whole dollar before you enter it in. Please don't enter in $1,050.25. Just type in 1,050, and that's where you go. Spending for disabled business enterprise and nonprofit work centers for the blind and severely disabled are captured in a report. Just be aware that those values are not added to the Hub spend for achieving the 10% goal. So after you've logged in, this is basically what you'll see. On the left-hand side, you'll see sort of a menu. And sometimes these will nest or get smaller if you click on certain things. And yours may look different than ours. But if you are looking to submit your quarterly report, you would go ahead and find where it says Hub Statistics down here. It won't have the red box around it. We just drew that on the screen. And you click on that, and it would show you all of your quarterly reports, what fiscal year they are available. If we're not all the way through the fiscal year, you won't see all 4 quarters. So right now, when you log in for fiscal year 2026, it will only show quarter 1. If you select a different fiscal year, it should show all the available quarters to review. And once that fiscal year is done, you really cannot go back in and enter any data. So it kind of protects it from accidentally changing numbers in the past. So what I would recommend is when you see the quarter that you want, double click on the quarter. So if we're looking at fourth quarter of 2024, we might need to update these slides. But if you click on fourth quarter, you double click where it says April 1 to June 30th. When you do that, it will open up the report for you, and it will show you the organization name. It'll show you the fiscal year and the quarter that this report covers. And then it will tell you the fiscal year again down here. And anytime you see these locks here, that means that's something you cannot enter data in there. That's intentional, and it's to try to make sure that this is just fiscal year 2024 and the fourth quarter. The total for all purchases, Hub and non-Hub, that's locked, and so is the total purchases for Hub. It will fill in as you enter data and save it. So don't be surprised if you cannot enter data in these screens and they're just showing as blank. That's intentional. That's by design. Once you hit save or save and close, those will populate. So each type of purchase that we talked about before, term contract, commodities, services, has its own little subsection where you enter in the data. And the dollars are entered over here in the field right next to the term. So term contract purchases, hub and non-hub. So that's term contract spending. All the money you spent on the state term contracts would go in that top box. And then if you spent any money on term contracts with a Black certified firm, it would go in that next field right there. Leave blank anything, don't change the 0 for anything you did not have spending there for. Just enter in the dollar values that you actually had spending. It will total up the term contract purchases for hub on the field that's the third from the bottom of this table. Again, that is something that is locked. If there's a formula in there that counts up all the spending from the Black down to the socially economically disadvantaged categories. Disabled business enterprise and nonprofit work center go down below, and they do not add into this term contract purchases for hub. And if you'll remember, we had a screenshot for the community colleges. The socially and economically disadvantaged category fell under the nonprofit work center. It was below them on their report. So that's where I'm saying, okay, be careful about that, because even though it was the last item on your report in colleague, it's not the last item in EVP. We tried to keep all the certified categories together, and then we put the ones that we have to capture, but they're not hubs down below that. And over on the right side, you've got percentages listed here. All of those are locked, so it won't populate until you enter some dollar values for the term contract purchases, the hub and non-hub, and please do that first. Before you enter in any hub specific values, please enter in your total first. Otherwise, it could give you an error, and it's hard to recover from that error. It's doable, but it's just a lot more work than it needs to be. So if you start with the total, you'll be good, and then enter in your hub spend. All right. And this is the commodity purchases section. It's set up identically. It's got the commodity purchases, hub and non-hub. So that's the total up at the top. Enter that before you enter in any hub category information or the disabled business enterprise or nonprofit work center information. Enter the total first. Once you click save, if there's any calculations that haven't auto-populated, they will show up correctly. Where you could do a save and close, but you wouldn't see the information anymore. The reason that we encourage saving is because you may not be able to do this all in one setting, or sitting. You may have to go to a meeting or get called away or something. So you may just not have enough time to do this all in one go. So if you enter in what you need to and save it as you're going along, you won't lose data and have to do it again. Okay. So
We have
this
a
again.
question in the chat. Sorry,
Oh,
John.
okay.
We have
you.
a question from Gandhi. Can nonprofits
Okay.
use the EVP system for Q1 submission, or do they need to continue using the spreadsheet?
Yeah, Gandhi, I'm sorry. We still need to use the spreadsheet for the nonprofits. Yeah. I'm looking forward to the day when you can do that yourself. It's actually much more best practice for the entities that are submitting it to enter that data themselves. It removes us as a potential error, as we're pulling data from one place to the other and putting it in the right place. I mean, we're very trustworthy and we double check things, but mistakes can happen. And we would much prefer that the entities be able to enter their own information. Okay, so this was just the services purchases section, and it's exactly the same as the others, except it's for services, not state term contracts or commodities. And somebody was asking about the screenshots and being able to see the screens. I want to make sure, does this feel like it provides what you were hoping to see? I'm trying to scroll back up to see who was asking about that.
I believe it was Jackie Farmer, if I'm correct.
Okay. There we go. Yeah. Jackie, does this look like it's going to be helpful to you? I'm not sure if I should take silence as a yes or no, but you can always let us know if you need additional information. So once you've entered in all your data, there's one more step you need to do. Even though you've saved it, it's not submitted to us yet. Before you leave, and if as long as you're good saying, this is it, this is right, I'm comfortable with this, let's go ahead, you would go up to the top of your report screen, and right next to that little green circle with the check in it, you'd click approve. And once you do that, it will fill in this blank field here, approved by, with your name and the date that it was approved on. So I'm not sure that I really need to say this, but use your own NCID when you're doing this. Do not borrow somebody else's. If you approve it and this is not you, we'll go back and say, hey, John Smith, you approved this on this date. And John Smith looks at us going, what? No, I've never, no, I didn't do that. Well, it's your ID. So how did it get in there? So please don't use anybody else's NCID, only use your own. That should be basic security, but just feel like we need to say it just to make sure. So Hub certification, we've talked about Hub, we've talked about certifications. Jackie says, no, all my columns have lock symbols. Jackie, are you looking at Q1 of this fiscal year? Because if you're looking at anything from an earlier quarter, all the columns are going to be locked, and you will not be able to make any adjustments to Q4 of last year or earlier. That's for first quarter. Okay. We may need to set something up, Jackie, and maybe Leslie can reach out to you about what a good time would be to see that, so that we can understand what you're seeing and see if there's anything that we need to do. There might be something we can do, or we might need to get some IT assistance on that. So definitely, if you want to send us a screenshot and say, hey, remember, this is Jackie Farmer. I said I had issues. Here's the screenshot. Let's set something up. That would be great. So I'm sorry you're experiencing that, and we'll try to help you out with that. We've talked about Hub certification before, and we talked about what the basic definition of that is. This is why do Hubs need to be certified, and it's referring back to that same statute that defines Hub, but it says only businesses certified in accordance with this section shall be considered by state departments, agencies, and institutions and political subdivisions of the state as historically underutilized businesses for minority business participation purposes under this chapter. So that's why we say only certified firms can count. And there are some support programs that are only available to certified Hubs. We do regular trainings on Purchasing 101. Meredith Swartz of DOA and Joni Robbins of DOT are typical trainers, but we actually had one yesterday, and Samantha Bryant, who is on this call, let's clap for her, was our presenter yesterday. And it's a great way for our Hub vendors to learn about procurement in the state and to get a better footing for how to find opportunities, how to submit bids that can actually be used, and to prepare them so they don't get caught up on some small thing like I didn't sign my RFP or I didn't sign my bid. But so there are some programs that are only available to Hubs and NCSBEs. Pretty much anything that's available to Hubs is available to NCSBEs. So how do firms get help with Hub certification? They can watch the certification training webinar that's available on YouTube. They can contact the Hub office. there's a phone number there, there's an email there, and we also do a fairly regular, I think it's monthly, certification virtual session. We've got one this afternoon, and we've typically been doing that in tandem with DOT because they have a particular certification, we have a particular certification. So we're trying to work together, and if people want to get certified, help them understand the certifications at the same time. So then the reason that we put this up here is because if you may encounter firms and they're not Hub certified or they expired, and you want to help them understand, hey, we'd like you to see if it's appropriate for you to get certified. You might want to reach out to the Hub office. There's a process there. It's basically 3 steps. You register an EVP, you fill out the application, you upload documents, and then we get it and we decide if they meet the eligibility criteria. I say that like it's really easy, like it's nothing, just 3 little things. There's multiple steps involved in some of those, and there's a fair amount of information that they have to pull together before they do it. So I'm not going to minimize that, but that's the basics of what the certifications are about. So we would encourage you, if you see some vendor you think might be eligible for Hub, to encourage them to go through the process to get certified. Statewide Uniform Certification is the official program name. SWUC is the acronym, but it equals Hub certification. If somebody is SWUC certified, they are a certified Hub vendor. The certification lasts for 4 years with an optional 4-year renewal. If something happens in the meantime, like they sell the company, they have to let us know that. And then they have to provide us some information to say, are you still eligible? It takes 45 to 90 days to get certified from when we have all the information we need. If somebody submits their application, but they never submit any documents, that 45 to 90 day clock will not start. It starts when they give us everything that we would need to make a decision. There's no fee to be certified. There's no cost to it. There is time that's involved in gathering the information and completing the application, but there's not a fee that they pay to us to do it. Reciprocity options exist. So if somebody is currently certified in North Carolina as a DOT DBE, a disadvantaged business enterprise, totally different from the disabled business enterprise that we were talking about earlier, then they have an easier time getting certified. There's some other certifications as well. If they're WBENC certified, Women Business Enterprise National Certification, or their National Supplier Diversity, NMSDC, National Minority Supplier Development Council certified, then they have an easier time getting certified as a Hub. And again, here are the 3 steps to get certified: EVP registration, complete the application in EVP, and upload the documents. So we're going to talk a little bit about finding Hub vendors. We actually have like 2 more minutes scheduled in the session, so I'll go through this kind of quick, but this can be important. So to find a vendor, you go to EVP, and I just type in NC space EVP, hit enter. It brings me to the website. Once I click on the link, and then I click Browse Vendors, it will open this basic search up which only has 6 fields on it. And I never use the 2 fields on the left, the one that doesn't have a title above it, or the one that says vendor status. Those aren't related to Hub. I could use the vendor name if I know the vendor name, or I'm looking for a particular trade. I could put that trade in there, and it will search it anywhere in the vendor name and help find it. And then I could, if I'm looking for Hubs, I would select that Hub certification status item and say certified, and then click search. You can get the entire list of Hubs if you go in here and do nothing else other than say certified under Hub certification status, and you will get the entire list all over the state. We do certify Hubs from other states too, and click search, and you'll get those search results. By the way, I do, like I said, I don't use those two fields. The one that doesn't have a title to it is a very powerful search, but it overrides anything else that you put in there. That includes if you selected somebody Hub certified, it will look for anybody with whatever category you put in that search. And so I don't use it because it will sometimes give me non-Hub certified firms. So if you want to look for hubs, if you want to look for NCSBEs, you can select those drop downs and choose those. If you want to look for somebody who is both, choose both of those. If you're just looking for hubs, just choose the hub certification one. Okay. And the counts do change frequently, like on a daily basis. We get people certified and some people drop off. So if you pulled this in January, it would not be the same list as it is right now. So we encourage you to look at these lists frequently. And if you can do it project by project, that might be ideal. If you want to do it monthly, that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, as long as you're finding the people that you need. And there is an advanced search. So if we go back here, there's an advanced search item right there. If you click on that little triangle, it will open up the advanced search, and you've got a lot of more options to choose things here. The most frequently used advanced search items would be the location. So choosing the county that you want to look at and looking at commodity codes or construction codes. And these are a little bit trickier in how to use them, but the blue button is your friend. You would click add in that, and then you would select the county that you're interested in and add it to the field that you're looking at there, and then add it back here and then do your search. It's a little bit confusing, but we do have some training information on that, and the vendor search information that is on the EVP training covers that as well. So once you do your search and you hit search at the bottom here, it will pull up the results that you have. It'll show the company name, the contact email address, phone numbers, addresses, all that, and it will tell you if they're Hub certified, if they're NCSBE certified. There is a NCSBE and a small business column there. That small business column is a self-identification. They have not gone through certification unless it says certified in the NCSBE column. It will also tell you if somebody is DBE or NPWC, if they've selected that. That if you select Hub certified, that will all be false, so it won't show there. And then you've got the search for vendor information. This is what it looks like if you click on the company name right here in these results. If you click on that, it will bring you here, and it will tell you that we clicked on the first one, Althea Nobles DBA Data Key by Althea or Aletha. And it shows you all these things that you can click on: business characteristics, contacts, locations. It does show the website if they entered one there. Construction codes and commodity codes for the individual company are listed there, and their Hub and NCSBE information is listed. So if you clicked on that Hub or NCSBE, you would be able to see their Hub certification number in that. So, and that includes the EVP number. So it says Hub dash whatever number after that, that whatever number after that is the EVP number. So posting opportunities on the Hub Office website. Some organizations don't use EVP to post their solicitations, and they can post on the Hub Office dashboard, which does include all of the EVP ones. So if you do post an EVP, you do not need to do this. You would just say, yeah, we posted an EVP. It'll show up on the Hub Solicitation Opportunities dashboard. Anyone can submit a bid opportunity in the Hub online form. People in EVP have to have specific access in order to submit those solicitations, but anybody can do it on the Hub online form. The link is provided there at the bottom. We do ask for a minimum of 12 days between when you submit this request to us and when the bids are due, so that we have 2 business days to process the request and at least 10 calendar days for the bid to be out there, for vendors to see it, say, I'm interested in it, learn about it, and get good pricing and be able to be sure that they can do the work. So it's not a terribly long form, but it is broken up a little bit because we used to have just one page form, and we had a bunch of bots from other countries trying to get in and put weird stuff in there. So it has helped us actually have true opportunities posted here. We strongly recommend that once the posting has been uploaded to the dashboard, that you take a screenshot of it. You do have to find it. We don't have a link directly to your solicitation, so you have to go in and find it. Hopefully it'll be easy because you can search by organization, just find your organization and then find the opportunity that you posted, and then click on show opportunity. It'll populate all this information about when the bid's due, what the project is called, the scope of work, and if there's a pre-bid meeting or a solicitation meeting, it would be up there, and contact information is up there as well. The scope of work can be really flexible. Some people put a lot in there. Some people just put the basics to say, hey, this is basically what we're doing. Click this link to go find other information. You cannot upload documents here, but you can put URLs in there. Once the bid due date passes, it no longer shows up on the dashboard, and you cannot go back in time to look for it. We have documentation that shows when we put it up on the dashboard, but it's not the same thing as seeing this as this is the website, public website that shows it was out there. So we strongly recommend you take a screenshot before then. There is an opportunity report down at the bottom. If you're really interested, you can see the total number of postings, how that's broken out by construction, goods and services, that kind of thing, how many are disaster related, where they're located, what city the opportunity is in, and the organizations that submitted that. So we use that internally a lot to help understand, how this dashboard is being used, and it's available publicly for anybody to see that. So here's how to get in contact with us. If you have Hub Goods and Services reporting requests, you can send them to this address, and we'll see them and we'll respond to them as soon as we can. Or you can call our main number, and you can ask for us there. If you've ever received an email from me or Leslie, our direct phone numbers and our direct emails would be in that email message as well. So thank you so much for your participation.